Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for a poetry discussion which will take place in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one, obviously, the Poetry Discussions playlist, but number two, also the Charles Bukowski Poetry playlist. I have a playlist where I have separated out all of the Charles Bukowski poems that I have. Today's poem, the poem in question today, A Smile to Remember by Charles Bukowski, and it reads as such. We had goldfish, and they circled around and around in the bowl on the table near the heavy drapes covering the picture window, and my mother, always smiling, wanting us all to be happy, told me, "Be happy, Henry." And she was right. It's better to be happy if you can. But my father continued to beat her and me several times a week while raging inside his 6'2" frame because he couldn't understand what was attacking him from within. My mother, poor fish, wanting to be happy, beaten 2 or 3 times a week, telling me to be happy. Henry, smile. Why don't you ever smile? And then she would smile to show me how, and it was the saddest smile I ever saw. One day the goldfish died, all 5 of them. They floated on the water, on their sides, their eyes still open, and when my father got home, he threw them to the cat, and there on the kitchen floor we watched as my mother smiled. So, here we have the goldfish coming to represent the mother, right? We have up here, we had goldfish and they circled around and around in the bowl. My mother, always smiling, wanting us all to be happy, told me, "Be happy, Henry." Then we jump down here. My mother, poor fish. Here, the fish itself has come to symbolize mother. Um, that's fairly on the nose there, right? Fairly on the surface level here. But one day the goldfish died, all 5 of them, and they floated on the water on their sides with their eyes still open. So if this goldfish is still representing mother, and the goldfish has died but mother has not, what maybe are we talking about? We are talking about the goldfish representing mother. The goldfish has died inside. Our mother has died. We already have a reference to the inside. Father beating us because he can't understand what was attacking him from within. So mother, it's no great stretch there to say that mother, still represented by the goldfish, has died on the inside. But here's where the poem takes a strange turn. And when my father got home, he threw them, the goldfish, to the cat there on the kitchen floor, and we watched as my mother smiled. What do you think the cat's doing with the goldfish? Cat's going to eat the goldfish. The cat, the violent one in this poem, the father, the violent one in this poem, the mother consumed, the goldfish consumed, both of them by the violent one being the father, the violent one being the cat. Now, there is something I want to talk about in this poem that I pulled straight from Wikipedia. So if you don't like the way that it's worded here, blame Wikipedia. Mono no aware, the pathos of things, and also translated as an empty toward things or a sensitivity to ephemera, is a Japanese idiom for the awareness of impermanence or transience of things, and both a transient gentle sadness or wistfulness at their passing, as well as a longer, deeper, gentle sadness about this state of being the reality of life. I think that is more or less where this poem exists. I believe it exists in the world of Monono Aware. We have the mother character accepting that what we are doing here is living in sadness, and we should show a smile through it. We had goldfish, and they circled around and around in the bowl on the table near the heavy drapes covering the picture and window. What sort of details, what sort of really bizarre but also banal details we get there. You give us the goldfish, yes, but they circle around and around on the table near the drapes. What's the point of the table and the drapes near the picture window? What are those details doing there? They're telling us about the domestic life in which we find ourselves in this poem. And then we get Mother encouraging us to smile, accepting the impermanence of life. It's a sadness, kind of, mono no aware. It is an acceptance of transience, a transient, gentle sadness or wistfulness at their passing, as well as a longer, deeper, gentle sadness about the state of being, the reality of life. We get the source of sadness here, but it is not in melodramatic fashion, is it? It is simply stated as a reality, stated as a fact of life. And then she would smile and show me how, and it was the saddest smile I ever saw. Because they're all getting beaten multiple times a week. But that fact, the beatings, the violence, they are not played up, they are played down. The poem could all be about those things, couldn't it? The poem could all be about how violent the household was, but it isn't. The poem is about a smile to remember. Our speaker here remembers that smile, remembers the mother's encouragement, even if it was such a sad smile. It does not get forgotten during the course of this poem. And I think there is an irony in Mono no Aware. And it is the irony of the permanence of sadness. The term itself, this poem itself, is about impermanence, right? The fish start the poem. The fish are dead by the end. The mother starts the poem telling our speaker to be happy, to smile. The mother is there at the end of the poem. But it's a little bit different at the end of the poem. She smiled. There on the kitchen floor, we watched as my mother smiled. That is the permanence of sadness. It was the saddest smile I ever saw. At the end of the poem, Mother's still smiling. So there is an impermanence to life, the ephemera, a sensitivity to ephemera, but a constance of sadness. In my experience with Bukowski, this is one of his more heart-wrenching poems. A lot of times in Bukowski, what we get is the speaker inviting us in to judge him. A lot of times what we get in Bukowski is the speaker inviting us into the poem in order to point and laugh at him. A lot of times what we get in Bukowski is the speaker saying, "Hey, come look at me and judge me, but probably don't be me. I am flawed. I am wrong. I am bad. I am all of these nasty, nasty things. Don't be me." But here in this poem, the subject of the poem is mother. We are left in sadness for mother. We are invited into this poem in order to figure out how we feel about mother. The father here, the father figure, we are not really prompted to feel one way or another about him, other than the fact that our speaker does not seem to blame the father. Our speaker seems to understand that the father figure is being torn apart from the inside and can't control himself. A little bit of a strange place to find yourself as a speaker, but that is where the speaker seems to be. Our speaker just sort of ostensibly himself, because we have so many male speakers from Bukowski, though it's never, well, no, yeah, because we get the name here, don't we? We get the Henry, don't we? Am I making this up? Henry, yeah. So our speaker here is not inviting you into the poem to figure out one way or another anything about him. Our speaker is inviting you into the poem to figure out how you feel about mother. Is mother here strong, or is she weak? Strong for making sure she tells Henry to keep smiling. Keep smiling, Henry. This life might not be much, but it is all we have. Smile. Or is she weak? Unable to break away from this situation? Is she weak in one regard and strong in the other? That is a complex character. Maybe the most chilling thing about this poem is that our speaker is so absent. Our speaker does show such a lack of emotion. We get from our speaker that mother is prompting him, "Can't you ever smile? Why don't you ever smile, Henry?" And at the end, there on the kitchen floor, we watched as my mother smiled. There is no emotional value or judgment coming from this speaker. It's pretty wild. That is pretty wild. And maybe that just feeds into the ambiance of a sensitivity to ephemera. A speaker who is present in the poem but absent from the subject. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you enjoy what I do here, hitting the like button tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing that I talk about on this channel. Speaking about poetry every Monday at least, speaking about novels, speaking about short stories, all of those sorts of things. So if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button in order to come back for more. I do drop multiple videos a week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.